on the streets. And I began to try to make a difference. I fumbled my way through. I just tried to make a difference the best way I could. During that time out on the streets, I developed relationships with a lot of people out there. There's a couple encounters. I could stand up here and tell you hundreds of stories that are tear-jerkers, but there's two encounters I had in my life that really ignited the fire within my soul and gave me that passion which drives me to this day. I want to share those with you. I recall being at work one evening. I worked third shift and it was extremely cold. It was wintertime. And I was reading an article about 5 homeless men in the Wichita paper that were sleeping outside the west side of the Wichita Public Library. No blankets, no shelter, nothing but the clothes on their back. And it wasn't really all that unusual until you take into account the temperatures that night were predicted to dip to something like 20 degrees below zero with a wind chill factor. And this article was on the front page of the Wichita newspaper, underneath an article, as if it was of secondary importance, telling us to bring our animals inside, our dogs, our cats, our pets, because they would freeze to death in these kind of temperatures. I saw that and I thought, people, wake up. What is wrong with this picture? I couldn't believe it. I was ashamed to say that I lived in Wichita, Kansas on that day. And the next morning when I got off work, as I walked to my car, it was bitterly cold. And I went by the west side of the Wichita Public Library. There were 4 men outside, huddled together, wrapped in soiled, tattered, torn blankets, trying to stay warm. And I asked myself the question, what if that was me? And I ended up going by McDonald's, getting some warm sandwiches, some hot coffee. And as I drove back by, these 4 men were so cold and so hungry, they took the sandwiches and the coffee greedily, threw the blankets back over their heads, and I never saw no sign of them. I was ready to leave, and out the corner of my eye, I noticed a lone figure, propped up against a building all by himself. He was an older man, and he just looked straight down, looking as though he'd lost all hope in himself and the rest of the human race. And I asked him, "Sir, would you like something to eat?" He didn't answer me, never said a word. So I went over to him, put a couple of sandwiches on his lap, I wrapped them for him, put a cup of hot coffee down by his side, and I sat down across from him, and I waited. After a couple of minutes, he began to eat. After 2 or 3 bites out of his sandwich, he looked up at me and he eyed me really suspiciously from head to toe. And then I saw the tears start to well up in his eyes, and he simply muttered one single solitary word. "Why? Why?" And I went over to him and I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, "Because I care." He immediately began to cry uncontrollably, got up and hugged me, and I started to cry. And it was so cold outside, people, it felt like the tears were literally freezing on our faces. And then he looked at me with a gaze that pierced the very depths of my soul, and he said, "I'll never forget this. I love you, brother. Thank you for giving me hope in a world without hope."